No, she
darker.
did, but it took like 4 days and like 60 conversations before she came around to like what I said before. And she didn't like the painter before.
It's like a big circle.
Oh, it's annoying. She was afraid about the painter too because we got in a couple different prices and this guy was inexpensive
What is this at the
compared to the other ones. She's like, well, what if that's bad? What if it's he's too cheap? I'm like, again, we're not painting the Vatican. Let's just throw the paint on the walls and be smart about it, and then we can fix it. Okay. Then he came and she liked him. She's like, okay. Like a week of that.
I feel like most decisions I have with my wife are a big circle. Just starting like, hey, this is my opinion. Like,
No one asked you.
4 days later,
Yeah.
5 days later.
Or,
Oh, yeah, here we are.
let me give you my unsolicited opinion that you'll ignore. So what other shows get done out of here?
The Anatomy of an Entrepreneur, which you'd be good for that show too, because you're an entrepreneur.
And anatomical. Anatomically correct.
And
How
then
anatomical is the show?
he's gonna have.
Your username for Facebook.
Yeah, I would do that.
FLG.
My username is my email. It's cwinkoff@flglacrosse.com. I'm not really sure what the password is, though.
I can't get on then.
What else, Mike?
He's got a psychic,
Got 1 minute.
Really? Awesome.
and
Yeah, it's fine.
he's starting a new show, which is gonna be really cool, with a couple with chefs. He'll explain it to you after the show. It's cool.
We gotta get on. As long as we're on, we just gotta hit the tab there.
I'll get it there. Once you're in there, I know how to do it.
Okay, we're live. It should be showing up. Before we're ready to go.
I'll go to videos.
Start the intro and then bring you up, okay?
Yep, it's there.
Just don't make me cry.
I'll do my best not to.
I'm already crying inside.
He's gonna keep it. Yeah, we're good. I don't know if we're live on Facebook though, Cliff. Never mind, we're good. We're live. Andy, welcome.
Hey, nice to be here.
Good to have you, buddy.
Thank you.
So we're live on Facebook and YouTube.
You appear to be live.
We appear to be. I think we are. Yeah, we're good. And we got a good show today. We're excited to have you. We're going to talk. We got some good topics. We're going to grill you with some questions. Hopefully some of our all right, we're rolling the intro, I guess. So I'm going to stop talking. Let me mute this.
You're good.
All right. It's a couple seconds behind here.
Corey, I'm sorry.
No worries. Are we good?
Yeah.
Still live.
We're still live. Do you want to roll the intro again? We can always cut that out later. Yeah, we're good. It's all good. All right, we got viewers are pouring in right now because you're a big deal, I assume. It's definitely not me. I'm here every week, and we don't always get this viewership this early on. So.
Well, I promised everyone a full ride to Harvard. I hope you don't mind.
What's the secret? We'll talk about that later. Let's not get right into that.
Yeah.
So full rides to Harvard will be given out tonight. Some advice on financial aid, which is, I feel like, very boring, but probably one of the most important topics you can talk about as it relates to.
Great setup. Thank you.
You're welcome. So no pressure in trying to make that entertaining.
Well, you set expectations very low, so that's good. I appreciate that.
I did that just for you.
Okay.
You're welcome. So, before we get into our show, we got to give a shout out to our sponsors. We're also going to talk about some of your books that you wrote, which is cool. So our first sponsor is Epic Lacrosse, based out of Minnesota. They're coming out east, so Long Island lacrosse community should be on the lookout for some really cool stuff that's coming their way that we're going to be giving out to all the games that we cover, all the media that we do, and all that good stuff. So that's our presenting sponsor for our a lot of our media side of our business, which our live show here is one of them. And then we also have displayed very nicely 2 of your books.
Microphone, Corey.
Which was, I'm getting yelled at right now. Which was the first book that you wrote? Was that this
Bring
one?
it higher.
The first
Corey,
book.
bring it higher.
Why are you yelling at me?
You can't see the book.
Oh, the book.
the
I think you're talking about my microphone.
Yeah.
So this is, can you see that?
Yeah.
Cool. You want to read the title there?
I'd love to. I could read the whole book too,
How
if we have
quickly?
time. Yeah.
Get the book out of your face, Corey.
So basically, you're saying it's a quick read.
It's a good bathroom book. How to get into your dream college without lying, bribing, or photoshopping.
So when did this book evolve? Like when did you start thinking about writing that?
In March of 2019, right after, approximately 5 p.m. after the story broke about Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin and all those idiots.
So for people that don't know that story, give us a gist of like what went down.
God, I think if they haven't heard that story, they're living in a cave. All these celebrities and ultra wealthy people paid this guy Rick Singer, who's a college advisor out of Sacramento, who I actually met years and years ago. I'm unindicted still to this day, by the way. I don't know if that's important to point out.
I think you should throw that out there. People are going to use your services potentially.
I am Long Island's greatest unindicted college advisor, Andy Lockwood.
You got to get that in quotes and get it on the website right away.
Yeah. So they all, there was all kinds of shenanigans like donations to fake charities and having an SAT tutor take the tests for them, for these kids, bribing coaches of sports, not lacrosse coaches, to I guess tag the kids as athletic recruits, even though they never rode or were coxswains, but they were photoshopped as if they were coxswains or water polo players, that type of thing. That's not in the book.
Yeah, that's absurd. By the way, are there some people that are like, hey, that's not that big a deal? Like, yeah.
Well, you know what?
College.
There is I do look at it as a continuum because there's not much of a difference between donating a few $1 million to a school with the tacit understanding that your kid's going to get in versus donating a few $1 million to the sailing team. And the coach says, okay, I'm going to declare you as one of my recruits, but he doesn't take any of the money himself. He just puts it into the program. Right. That was one of those cases at Stanford. So it is a continuum. I think the bribing and the SAT taking is probably crossing the line a little bit. Yeah. I don't judge too much. But that's where I draw the line.
You talk the facts and people can take what they want.
I'm a journalist.
Yeah. With integrity and unindicted. Let's talk about that book. What's the title there?
So that was the first book I ever wrote, How to Pay Wholesale for College. It's now in its 5th edition, and it's about strategies that anyone can use, even if they think they make too much money, to get discounts for college.
What do you mean by 5th edition?
Well, there were 4 previous editions. So I've rewritten it a bunch of times because the rules change every once in a while.
Gotcha.
So I had to force myself to write it again, which is like giving birth. I understand.
I don't think you want to compare that to giving birth.
All right, it's like a kidney stone. How's that?
That's better.
Okay.
More applicable to our gender. All right. So let's talk about what you do. Talk about who you do it for, and talk about why you do it.
So I'm an unindicted college advisor. We help kids get into top colleges. We help parents pay discount prices for them, and we do test prep and sort of everything related to college stuff, but without the photoshopping.
Gotcha. And who are some of the people that you work with here locally?
Well, it's a wide variety because we have these different parts of our business. So some people just work with us for test prep, the SAT and the ACT. Some people just hire us for helping them with the financial aid forms and filing them and trying to arrange things legally and ethically so that they can maximize their eligibility to get the most money possible. And then there are a fair amount of people that work with us as early as 9th or 10th grade to make sure their kids are taking the right classes and doing the right extracurricular activities and doing the right summer things, and that whole body of work that ultimately gets judged by an admissions officer by the time you're filling out your applications to go to college. Yeah. And it's a lot of student athletes, a lot of non-athletes, all kinds of kids.
How'd you get into this business? Take us back a little bit here.
Well, not because I had some master plan, to be a college advisor, but I practiced law for 5 years. I'm a recovering attorney, and
still getting through it.
Yeah, still working through it since the '90s. And I was in-house counsel to a publicly traded brokerage firm in Miami. We got sold a couple of times. After the second time, I knew that I wasn't going to be long for that world. This is around '99. So I went out on my own. I started going to marketing conferences just to kind of learn about how to promote my business more. And I met a college planning guy in Carlsbad, California, near San Diego, or maybe part of San Diego. And a few months later, in 2000, he licensed me to teach me the business. So it's just a stroke of luck from going to these conferences. That's how I got into it.
Is this license something that he created?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. He took his I've actually done something similar
Yeah.
this year. I was telling you about that, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So he was a college advisor. He decided to teach other people how to do it. It's like franchising, but it's really, not really a franchise thing with all the paperwork.
Gotcha.
It's more of a here's how you do it. Go, goodbye and good luck.
And you're now doing that too, right?
Yeah, I just started.
That's kind of
that.
cool.
Yeah.
Came like full circle. A little
Yeah,
bit.
right.
And how's that going?
I just started last month, and so far so good. Yeah, it's we had like 12 people sign up with us. And
Where are they from? Just local, or is it more like
it's
global?
Someone signed up. She told me from Tokyo,
Wow.
North Carolina, Georgia, 2 people in Pennsylvania, 1 person in San Diego. Yeah, all over.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure when you met that guy from California, you met him in person, right?
Yeah.
And like he
Right.
couldn't really do what you do now, like 20 years ago, just because of
The
the
internet.
way the internet's evolved and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's interesting.
So where do you go now to like keep up on? You talked about that's your 5th edition, so things
Yeah.
are changing, rules are changing. How quickly are they changing, and like how do you stay up on this stuff?
They change quickly, but there's a long tail sort of that precedes it. So then it might change quickly, but
Right.
there's always like talk that leads up to it. I go to all these conferences that are really boring, and I network with a lot of my colleagues in different parts of the country.
Yeah.
And I kind of read everything. I get my. I don't just read what I wrote. I read other people too, whatever I can get my hands on. Although I prefer my own materials.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's why you wrote the book for yourself, right?
Right, pretty much.
And if you want to buy it, you can too, I guess.
I did amuse myself. Yeah, it does make a great holiday gift. You should point that out.
Yes, I read it.
Thank you.
I got it for free though.
Your dad read part of it.
Yeah, he probably read the intro on the toilet, and that was it.
No one reads it. I mean, it's more important to have a book than to actually have a book that someone reads. That's what I determined.
Do you think most people are digesting the content from your book, like basically what's happening right now, like interviews like this?
When you say digest, is that a bathroom reference, or is
That I'm not that punny, but no, it was not. It was just like, hey, what's going on in your book?
I think that I mean, listen, on a good month, I'll get a check from Amazon for like a couple $100 from people who've read it.
Sure.
Which is great because it's better than having leave my house to Amazon. I like it. I like it when it comes back. But it's just really more of a credibility thing. It's not necessarily something that like changed my my business overall. Something just happened.
No.
Okay.
It's just you.
Okay. But I do a lot of public speaking, and
Yeah.
I give it away a lot at workshops, to people who get answers right and that type of thing.
Yep. Yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like there's there's so much good content that comes through experience. I know a lot of your experience you kind of pour into the stuff that you talk about and write about. These days, there's just so many ways to like educate people on the content and on your experience. So I like how you do that in different ways, like on your website, for example, like you have interviews from you and Fox, like you have quotes and testimonials from your families. Like there's a lot of different ways that people can understand what you do. But for the purpose of the show and people watching it, let's talk a little bit more about that. One thing that you talk about and you guide people through is financial aid. Can you just mention quickly, like, what is financial aid as it relates to preparing for college? And what are some things that parents maybe don't really know about financial aid that they should?
Well, so financial aid is an umbrella term that means any money that a college gives, and it could be based on your financial need, which is calculated after you do the financial aid forms. There's the FAFSA, which is the federal form. There's other forms that colleges use, and that's based on income and 70 to 100 other factors, but it's not just income. And then merit aid is another term that kind of means anything that's not need-based, so it's not based on your financials. So it could mean athletic scholarships. It could mean music or other performing arts, community service. Most commonly, it means grades and SAT, ACT scores. There's more of that money out there than there is need-based aid. So that's usually surprising to many families. And also the average discount, the average tuition discount has risen every year. It's now at, I think, 52.2%. From private colleges, the ones that have the highest sticker prices, that charge the most.
Gotcha.
And that surprises a lot of people also. At any given college, roughly 25% of the families only are paying full price, and the others, subsidizing the other 75%. So paying full boat is a choice. It's not an obligation.
Now, as more merits being given out, how much is tuition rising in your, from what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, tuition rises roughly 3% a year on an average year. It's been a little bit less overall, mostly, and the discounting is not quite in lockstep, but it's close.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Question just came in here. So from Kaylin, who's watching the show, how do you suggest a high school athlete should tailor their college applications to stand out amongst hundreds of other athletes trying to accomplish the same goal?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously a lot of it is talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was actually the woman I was telling you about before, my client who's a marketing consultant, she told me something interesting. She did a poll because she wrote she did a project for John Wooden's family, the great UCLA Wizard of Westwood basketball coach. And she was telling me that they did a poll of all college coaches in terms of what the most important things were to them as they were looking to recruit kids. And there were something like 20-ish, 25 characteristics. It wasn't until like number 7 or number 8 they started talking about athletic ability. Everything before that was about character and perseverance and dealing with adversity and things like that come through the application. It also comes through the interviews. So those are the types of things that I would tell any athlete to emphasize. I think also, not just for athletes, but I think because of the scandals that happened, I think it's more important than ever to telegraph that you're of strong character. I think almost that character is the new SAT in a way, and so playing up your devotion to community service and volunteering and that type of thing I think is really important.
And actually like doing it right, like not just like, hey, I'm a part of this like club. It's
right.
Like, okay, like why are you part of it? What have you done for it? What impact? Like how can you measure potentially the impact of what's involved in? Because I see a lot of, it comes a little more from the parents. It's like, hey, we got this community service activity coming on. Like these kids pop up out of nowhere. But like I've also done ones consistently where like the same kids are showing up. It's like those are the kids that are actually like making the impact because they're like committed to something and they want to make that difference. So I think like communicating like in depth what you do for whatever it is that you're doing, I think is super important. So it's not just so like topical.
Yeah, I mean, just to plus what you were saying, it's got to be consistent. It can't be what I call the born-again junior phenomenon, where a kid just all of a sudden wakes up, or a mom all of a sudden wakes up, and it's like, hey, Joey, you haven't done squat. You have got to do all this community service.
Yeah.
So, we're going to do a 3-on-3 basketball tournament, and it's going to, we're going to fight autism, AIDS, breast cancer, and a disease to be named later or something, right? It can't be that. It's got to be a consistent track record. Yeah. The earlier you start, the better, which is why I don't think kids are ready necessarily to hire someone like me in 9th grade, but to start thinking about this and building that body of work, that really does need to happen way before high school guidance counselors will tell you to focus on it. They may not have a college meeting, quote unquote, until 11th grade.
Sure. Financial aid is something that like some parents might say, hey, can't like my accountant, like I run a small business, can I just talk to my accountant about this? Like, why do I need you? Like, what do you have to say to something like that?
It's very unusual for accountants and CPAs to understand the 1,100 pages of regulations behind the federal form, the FAFSA, which is the easy form, because they're so busy keeping up with the just the regular tax changes.
Yeah.
So I actually train accountants. I've taught continuing education courses, and none of them knows the rules about small businesses, it seems like, or which types of assets penalize you more than others, which don't penalize you at all. So they're usually okay at sort of like doing forms and scrivening, but it's very, very, very unusual for them to understand the financial aid rules, which change all the time, like you pointed out before.
A parent just asked a question who has, I happen to know this guy because his daughter plays in our program, so she's kind of in the thick of it as it relates to the recruiting process. But he said, what can you say to people who have a 529 with regards to aid amount from private schools?
So the thing about the 529 is not whether it's good or bad or it's going to hurt you or not. The question is how much is it going to hurt you potentially? Yeah. So the 529 college savings plan is great to have because of its tax benefits, but it can actually penalize you in the financial aid formulas because it's a resource that you can use to pay for college, and that's really what the formulas are all about. But that's only one factor out of 70 plus factors.
Right.
So a lot of private schools will penalize you either a little or a lot for having that. But then there's no magic number. But if your income is too high to be able to qualify for age, that's way more important. So it doesn't matter where you have money saved, whether it's in a 529 or not.
Right.
So it may or may not be a bad thing for that person. Do you have his tax returns on you? I can
Yeah.
just take a quick look.
Hold on, let me pull it up here. You need Social Security.
Yeah. It's the internet. It's safe. This show is secure.
Yeah.
Right?
No, we're good.
Okay.
We have a good audience.
Okay.
They wouldn't do
I
that
trust
to
you
him.
guys.
Steven, no, I'm not going to say the
Right.
last name.
Just need the home address, social.
Just going to need some pieces of info here. Just give me 1 second. I'm just checking Facebook here to make sure I'm not missing any questions that are coming in.
Okay.
Because
Isn't that what Mike's supposed to be doing?
yeah,
There's nothing.
he's
Nothing
nap-
on Facebook.
All right,
Okay.
cool. You're just on Facebook over there.
I'm on Facebook.
All right, I just want to make sure you weren't napping over there in the
No,
corner.
I'm good. I'm waiting for a question. You're getting them all on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. They're coming in hot right now, but we have some more.
Is Zuck on? Did he want to ask anything?
No, not a
Facebook?
word.
Okay.
Yeah, he's probably
This
watching.
guy like bugs the crap out of me all the time. He just doesn't leave me alone.
Yeah, it's because
He knows he heard I was on FLG's show.
he's definitely watching. He's probably under like Wizard Man 327. It's not actually him.
With a hoodie. FLG hoodie.
It's a Bitmoji avatar of a hoodie. He's got an FLG hoodie on.
Should send him one.
Yeah, we should. Wonder where he lives.
So many good ideas for you.
Yeah, if you can't, it's not about quantity, it's about quality here.
Mm.
Let's give quality information. That's what we've been doing so far. Let's talk about guidance counselors, because like we sit down too with recruitable age athletes and their parents, and we talk through their recruiting process. That could be anywhere from like athletic fit, academic fit, a little bit with the financials. Not always something that is discussed, even though it should be pretty much every time. And a lot of times we're like, hey, like, have you met with your guidance counselor? Like, oh, no, I haven't met with them yet. And like, there'll be like a junior in high school. And it's like, okay, well, you should probably do that. Cause like, I'm not going to say your guidance counselor doesn't know anything, cause they might be great or they may not be, but like, you got to at least have that conversation and meet. Also, a lot of times when they have to get their transcripts, they go through the guidance counselors. So for you, like what do the guidance counselors maybe do that you don't, or where do you see them lacking in schools or maybe helping? And, maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Do you think there are any guidance counselors watching this?
There could be.
One.
Okay.
They could watch in the future too. Just keep that.
Okay. I'm just curious. Don't read into that. So I'll tell you in all honesty, I have 4 kids. We've had the same guidance counselor for all of them, and she's awesome. So
Yeah.
I actually really love a lot of guidance counselors. However, either because of the system, first of all, the average ratio of student to counselor is like 400 to 1 in New York. Or maybe more than that. I don't think we would have much of a firm if parents' expectations of what counselors should do matched with reality.
Right.
So I don't really bash them. I'm bashing the system in that, in terms of what I was saying before. Number one, the body of work that gets judged ultimately when you apply starts in 9th grade, and most counselors don't meet until 11th grade.
Right.
Second of all, with the financial aid formulas, they're not trained in that, so you can't expect them to know about scholarships and how to get more need-based aid, how to fill out forms and all that type of stuff. So that's really a non-starter also. But I think the main thing is probably that ratio of student to child. You can't really get the personalized, individualized, one-on-one help that you've been hoping for in most cases. Private schools too, by the way. I mean, we probably have more kids from private high schools than we do from public high schools, or it's pretty even. And it's really more about the training than anything. So it's either the ratio of student to kid to counselor or the training.
Yeah, gotcha. I feel like, when you have that many kids that you're supposed to manage, it's like you don't have enough time in the day or like school days in a year to follow up, because it's not just a one-time meeting. Usually it's a constant, steady stream of communication between like, all right, here's your target list of schools. How are your grades evolving? How are they changing? What classes are we taking? How did those college visits go? Especially for athletes, who you interested in, who's interested in you. And it's like, with us, we have a small pool of athletes that we help, and the conversation is sometimes on a weekly basis, if it's a little more high maintenance of a client because maybe they're a really good student, really amazing athlete, they're getting more attention, or, we talk to someone at least once a month because, you gotta stay in touch to just kind of talk about where things are and where they're going. So I can only
things happen continually throughout the calendar year and even in the off season as well as the on season. Most guidance counselors report that they spend about 20% of their time on college-related stuff, and the balance is like kids' schedules, truancies, delinquencies, pregnancies, drug use, whatever that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's not usually the best place for someone who wants a little bit higher level of service.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, makes sense. So, what's one of the bigger mistakes that parents make as it relates to financial aid in their process?
I think just ruling themselves out, not thinking that they can possibly qualify because they may not be able to get money from filling out the forms, which may or may not be true. But a lot of people think, why should I bother? Families like us can't qualify for anything because, I have a job, I have a house, I pay my bills, that type of stuff. But I said this before, there's more non-need-based aid out there in terms of schools that want certain kids, matching them up. So that's definitely a big thing. I also think, and this is something I've been sort of working on recently, is for a lot of high-income business owners, they rule themselves out also. They think that they're just going to get, shafted by the colleges. But they actually have a unique high-income business owners, self-employed people have a unique set of tools and techniques that can actually help them unlock these, what we call business scholarships from their businesses, and that their accountants usually agree with. They just never proactively suggest them.
Now, what's an example of one of those?
So I'll give you like the global, because it's different for everyone. But the global 30,000-foot view is in need-based aid, you're penalized for having money in the kids' names. That counts against you more. So you want to take money out of their names. But it's the opposite for high-income business owners. You want to put money into the kids' names, particularly income, because they're taxed at a lower marginal rate. So there's a lot of income shifting strategies. There's something called the Section 127 plan where it allows you to pay for your employees' college expenses up to a certain amount. There's something like 150 techniques that are sort of buried in the code, in the IRS code.
Gotcha. So that's something you dig through and kind of help some of your clients, like
say,
hey, did you know that you could do this? Can you try it?
Right.
You can try that.
Yep. So I have a very well-regarded high-end CPA partner who's actually my personal accountant. He did a lot of the stuff for me. Yeah. And it's just amazing. But it's really the same stuff that people like, Bezos, Buffett, you name it, they use to pay lower tax rates than people who make, like $800,000 a year.
Gotcha.
So they end up employing their children in essence? Some
of them do, yeah. I mean, and it's like, he's Corey's out of college, right? You did actually graduate?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
I still have I have the diploma somewhere in my closet.
From eBay or from Penn?
Yeah, we don't have to talk about where it came from.
All right. Show's about me.
Yeah.
I saw his name on the board, so that made me feel good.
But like my son, for example, does a lot of my social media, and that's how much it can cost to to hire a social media consultant, and so it's got to be legit. But that could be one strategy that works for a lot of business owners.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You worked in college. You were a coach, remember?
Yeah.
We should have known him then. We would have saved ourselves a fortune.
Should go back to school.
It's not too late.
Law school. World needs another lawyer.
Not me. Fine. There's plenty of lawyers hopefully watching that you'll inspire today.
To quit.
Yeah, to not do it ever.
This guy's besmirched my profession. Yeah.
Another question just came in on YouTube. I guess it's where it's at today. Is there a way for a kid to be viewed as independent by a college without legally claiming so? My girlfriend's parents moved to California. She is here supporting herself in full, but claimed on their taxes.
So that's interesting because that was one of the scams that came out last year too. There was this group of parents in the Chicagoland area who were sort of disavowing guardianship of their own kids and sloughing them off on relatives who had lower incomes in order to qualify for aid. And there was a lot of flack, a lot of negative media coverage about it, but it was actually totally legal.
Yeah.
I think the illegality would be if there was still a money trail where the parents who were no longer guardians were still somehow supporting the kid. So the answer, though, for that is specifically what has to happen is what's called, it's a funny term, it's an emancipation. It's like a Civil War term, but it's an emancipation proceeding, which is a legal proceeding in which you have to demonstrate that the girl is no longer supporting herself. She's totally on her own. So, it's kind of a pain in the butt to do, but it is totally legal. And, the thing about financial aid is that the financial aid rules presume that if you're in undergrad school or you're 25 or younger, the presumption is that you are being supported, that you are dependent.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to rebut that presumption and prove that you're independent. So it's possible. It's just a pain in the butt.
Gotcha. What is that process like? Like, how long does it take? How would you initiate it? You know,
It's different.
Is that
in
something
each,
you help people through?
No, we don't do that.
Oh, gotcha.
Especially after that article came out. No, I didn't know that person, but I thought that was pretty clever. I'd always heard of people doing that, but I never looked into it because I just thought, it seems like a huge pain, and most kids I know wouldn't qualify anyway. So it varies from state to state. I think in Illinois it seemed to take a few months.
Gotcha.
I can't imagine it taking a shorter period of time anywhere. And if anything, those rules are probably going to kind of be changed also because of the negative publicity.
Yep. And then like going back to like the FAFSA form, that's something you fill out independent of each school that you're looking to get into, right? Or is that something you fill out for the first time and then that's it is what it is across the board? So like, what's that process like for a parent to fill
right?
That
so in senior year of high school in October, the financial aid forms become available. So this year in 2020. Mm-hmm. For kids who are graduating in 20, well, I guess it would be next year. So for kids who are graduating high school in 2021, mm-hmm. the forms are going to come out in October, and they're going to be so all the college applications, for admission usually go in around then. Also separately, each college has its own priority financial aid deadline that is separate and apart mm-hmm. from the application deadline. So that's something that messes up a lot of parents.
Gotcha.
The other thing is the kids who graduate 2021, the income that the forms are examining are based on 2 years prior, 2019. So the process, if you're going to move money around to improve your eligibility and there's tax consequences, you really want to do it more than 2 years in advance. So hardly everyone realizes that unless they've gone through it with older kids.
Gotcha. So by the fourth, hopefully,
big mistake.
Yeah.
That's why it's probably smarter to meet with you in 9th grade, because then you're preparing for 11th and 12th.
The ideal time is, in utero, but realistically, 9th grade is probably the earliest that a kid might be ready to do this. But financially speaking, 9th or 10th grade definitely makes sense. But most people procrastinate, right? Or they just don't know the right questions to ask. They don't know what they don't know, type of thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So by 11th grade is when people wake up, and sometimes they have this, the V8 moment. I wish someone had told me about this 2 years earlier.
Do colleges negotiate? Like, if you say, hey, like, I'm not paying that. Like, like look at what my daughter has done. Look at her transcript. Like, is there anything you can do to work with us a little bit here, or is that not out of the question? Well,
on page 47. No, I actually don't know. So I'm actually it's in that book, How to Pay Wholesale for College. But I'm also finishing off. Literally today, I sent it to my editor. How to negotiate your crappy financial aid and merit aid award. That's what it's called. And we've gotten some great results for. I don't have a magic wand, so we don't always hit it out of the park. But I just last week I found out from a client of mine in Manhasset that Boston College, who had originally given them something like $23,000, bumped that up to 40 something, and then they added another $9,300 as of last week. So that was a negotiation that was successful. BC is notoriously stingy, although I personally haven't found them to be that way. As long as I found them to be reasonable. So if someone just wants more money because they want more money, that's not really a good argument.
Right.
But if someone has a better offer from a competitor college,
right,
that could be a good argument. Or if there's a story behind the numbers that went on the FAFSA. So right before, I was mentioning how this year and every year the income is based on 2 years in the past. Mm-hmm. So if you're self-employed, for example, you could have had a great year in 2019, and then, or maybe we'll just bump it back in 2018. But in 2019, maybe you lost your biggest customer and your business, took it tanked. Mm-hmm. That won't be on the financial aid forms. It's entirely silent. So a lot of times we make these arguments. Look, I know that we look one way on paper, but things aren't quite as rosy as they seem. We had all these expenses, these major expenses because of X, Y, and Z, or we had this loss of income because I got laid off and I've been trying to look for work or something. So we try to negotiate those all the time, and sometimes we get zero. And we had a couple of clients last year who went from zero to $53,000, for 1 year. So it's always worth trying.
Sure.
It just happened with one of our recruits. Exact story. Their business went bad, and they got $50,000 at a private liberal arts school.
Terrific. Yep. So it's always worth trying. A lot of parents don't even know that they can try. You know, that's really one of the biggest obstacles. They're like, I thought that was just it. You get what you get, and you don't get upset, type of thing.
Yeah.
But you really, it's negotiable. And the best offense is the best defense is a good offense, because for recruits in particular, as they start getting interest and soliciting from different colleges, I would never just be one's the worst number to have in business and in recruiting.
Right.
So I think it would be very well served for all of your athletes to make sure they get as many offers as they possibly can to be able to leverage them against each other.
Who are you negotiating with specifically if you're communicating with a school?
Most of the time it's admissions, because they care about enrolling people, and they care about sort of the quality of people that are attending, their SAT scores and ACT scores, their GPAs, their athletic ability, whatever talent or value they're going to bring to that particular college. And they're not the bean counters like the financial aid guys are. But some arguments are more need-based, like the one that Mike just said with the business owner, and some are more merit-based, which is we have these offers from these other colleges, but we really want to come here, and these are here's all the examples of stuff that we're going to do to improve your value as a college. So it depends on each situation.
Sure. And sometimes, it's with the coach, right?
They also have to understand that they're selling themselves no different than when they're going for a job interview and interviewing in 3 different firms. You're going to the firm that gives you the best deal, but you might want to work for a certain firm, but you're asking them to give you the same deal as the firm that you might not want to go to.
So that's a much higher level, higher ground statement right there, which I think is probably the most important thing here, because I look at this whole process of kids growing up and putting on the big boy pants or whatever, and these are all life skills. Yeah. Like, it's not just about getting into school and learning how to do that. It's about learning how to kind of advocate for yourself for your whole life. And negotiating is 100% probably the most important life skill I think that anyone could have. Being persuasive and negotiating go hand in hand. So that's a really good point.
Question just came in.
Thanks for stopping by.
No problem.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Glad you're up over there. It's about that time of the day, 2:30. Starting to get sleepy over there?
Yeah.
Gotta get
Nap time.
Iced coffee.
Okay.
What's the best and most difficult parts of the role that you play in getting students into the school that they desire? So I want to start with the best.
Yeah, and the best is just helping kids be successful. Like, I actually, even though we have kids every year who get into, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, MIT, Duke,
Ithaca
Stanford,
College.
whatever. I really don't Ithaca. I really don't give a where they go. I just because I want them to be successful, with their lives. I want them to be positioned for success. So I really enjoy helping them that way, and sometimes that means kind of being like a tough love guy. Yeah. Right. Setting expectations the right way. I don't know if there's any real worst parts per se of what I do.
What are
other
some
than
challenging parts?
Yeah. Okay. You're going all euphemistic on me. I think if I had to point to one thing, it would probably be parents who were not, and you probably have the same thing, not to put words in your mouths, but parents who are not really willing to take a back seat to the process, and they think they know much better for their kid, and they're not letting their kid, succeed or fail, on their own. And the reason I had a hard time coming up with that is because I don't really allow that to happen in our practice. I just say, listen, we're not right for you, and I give them their money back, and if I had to, or I usually just kind of threaten, and I say, remember how we talked about this is a process about your kid more than you, know? And they'll be like, yeah, I know, but I can't help myself. I'm like, well, if we're gonna work together, I suggest that you be a little bit less impulsive about it, and so that would probably be the biggest obstacle or challenge.
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, we say it all the time. One of the best parts that we like to see is the maturing process and the developing of the life skills of the student when they first start their recruiting process, which a lot of time for kids.
And
it's
your
like
dad.
Early sophomore year, and this guy.
Yeah, the maturing process.
Right?
The slow gestating. It's happening.
Gestating's a great word to put for him. He's still getting there. He's like, I don't even know how old you are. You're like
I'm about 15 and a half.
He's in his mid-50s. I was going to say 16. But
Yeah.
that's about accurate.
Aren't we all? I could be talking about myself, too.
He's still sneaking into gas stations trying to get beer. Like, dude, no, like, you're over 21, you have a license.
It's not as much fun if it's legal.
He's still having fun. I'll give him that.
I only go to Met games because they proof me.
That's true, they do. This past summer, that was
It's
a
fun
good
to watch a
compliment.
good baseball game.
No.
No, definitely not. But yeah, I mean, kids, you know, they do that. They develop maturity, life skills. But then there's also the kids that just like, that just never happens because a lot of times it's like their parents just get in the way. And like, if you speak for your kid and like get in the way of that process, they're never going to like learn like all the most important things that you're talking about, which kind of sucks to say that because it's a missed opportunity, right? At like a really impactful
It's going to happen
age.
at some point, but do you want it to happen, you know, sooner or later? Do you want it to happen because of you or despite you? And sometimes I'll actually literally say that to parents. And it's I understand, like, as a parent myself, there's an impulse, of course, to, you know, be like Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman, snowplow all the obstacles away and all that. But what the sad thing about that scandal to me was that the kids got the message that they can't achieve anything on their own. They need this special help. Yeah. And that's just not true. Yeah. So, so I'm not about that at all. I'm not the right advisor. You're not the right coach for everyone. I'm not the right advisor for everyone.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but like.
Bring it. I'm okay.
I'm having a tough time grilling you, which is a good thing for.
I told you I'm crying. I'm crying inside.
Crying inside.
Let's go back to your childhood.
I might have to get there in a second because this isn't working. I like how you brought up your kids. Did you advise them in their college process differently than you advised your
clients? Oh my God, that's a great question, bastard. No, so I have 2 boys and 2 girls. Yeah, and every kid is different. Yeah, the best way that I would describe my older 2 boys is that if you saw them in high school, you would not think of them as exactly being the best walking advertisements for our business. Okay, they have other redeeming qualities. Okay, but academia was not their particular calling. They're both very smart and interested in intellectual stuff. And my older one, you know, he read the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and stuff since he was like 8 or 9 years old, but he couldn't turn in his homework when he was in high school. Right, that type of kid. So
there's a lot of kids that can relate to that, especially kids that we know. Can you maybe talk about why your kids are like, I'm not doing my homework? Like, what was that? Maybe not argument, fight, or just like, whatever in your house? Like,
my response to that was after some, you know, unprintable type of language. It was really a couple of things. One, it was, look, I can't want this more than you do, so I'm not, you know exactly what's going to happen if you continue this. So I try to, you know, future pace. I try to say, look, your friends are all going to apply to college. They're going to get into, you know, decent. A lot of them are going to get to decent schools, and they may not be as smart as you, and you're not going to get into those schools. So if you're okay with that, then, you know, go ahead. I mean, we would do stuff like take away the Xbox and threaten them, but I would, you know, at the end of the day, I was like, I can't want this more than you. And with Pearl, my wife, you know, so she went to Cornell, I went to Wesleyan. You know, good schools, hard to get into. We paid attention in school and did our homework and stuff. The realization that our kids are not us, that was probably the main bit of advice that we had to give ourselves as parents. Like, they're not us. In contrast, my girls, you know, totally opposite. They're more like us. And my 11th grade daughter crushed the SAT in her first try, and they, you know, it's 2 different. It's like they grew up in different houses. You know, my wife and I look at each other. We're like, you know. Really? Same parents? You know?
Is your house that big where you got like wings for your daughters and your sons over there?
It's not. Yeah. In my mind, maybe. Yeah. It feels a lot smaller because we're having it painted right now. That's why I came here early to get it. Yeah. Well, my wife was having a hard time deciding between shades of khaki. That's when I knew I had to leave. She was asking me what I thought. I'm like, come on. It's not the Sistine Chapel, you know. Let's just, who cares? It didn't go over too well. Yeah.
And that's when you had to leave the house.
Yeah. So my approach with my own kids is different per kid. So my 11th grader Lizzie is so incredibly coachable. She's like great at everything. You know, she tries really hard at everything she does. Yeah. So it's more like, here's what you need to do, and then she'll come back, you know, a week later, and I can see like her color coded like to-do list of things checked off, and you know, she's very compulsive, and I can relate to that a little bit. My wife can relate to that a lot more, and it's just totally different.
So can we talk a little bit about Pearl?
I'd love to talk
because
about
Pearl is a big part of this Andy Lockwood, conglomerate.
Be careful
Okay. You want me to hit it more?
I'm gonna come in, just
Yeah.
do whatever you're gonna do. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna come to the set and fix it.
So, because I want him to talk a little bit about Pearl because she's a big part of your business.
Yeah, what,
Pearl is awesome. Thank you.
Move your hands, because,
Jazz hands?
well, yeah, just because you keep on hitting this.
Okay.
And it goes.
He's very touchy.
Okay.
Thanks.
Andy's a touchy guy. He's a lovable guy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cliff.
Thanks for stopping by. So my wife does all the. She's an overqualified, extremely hardworking. She has all the financial aid forms in her office. So she'll do, 250, 300 financial aid forms a year for our clients, and she's got help. But she is extremely meticulous and very knowledgeable about the ins and outs of the forms in a much deeper way than your average accountant is.
Mm-hmm.
And she's, she works like a farm animal. She's crazy. During her season, she's nuts. Now she can focus more on shades of khaki, thankfully.
Now, that's in the October period that you're talking about when,
Yeah.
like in the summer leading up?
Right. So the planning aspect happens before, in terms of the strategizing and ways, looking at colleges and ways to optimize your eligibility and all that type of stuff. But when the forms actually come out, it gets pretty intense because there's different priority deadlines for each school. So like UNC Chapel Hill, if you apply early decision there, it's due October 15th. It only gives you like a 2-week window to get everything in. A lot of deadlines are November 1, November 15th, December 1st. They all vary from school to school.
Mm-hmm. Now, based on like the amount of forms your wife does in a given year, does she notice like are there things that stand out? She's like, hey, like we got to talk about this. Like you should bring this up on the next BYG episode.
She's always saying that. Yeah. We do. I mean, we have our own show, College Talk Tuesday.
And where can people listen to that?
Yeah.
Any
Internet,
platform.
on the internet. Yeah.
Google it.
Yeah.
We'll have to
Figure
get
it
you
out.
on the Streamcast network. We know someone.
Okay. The microphones, though, they're very touchy here.
Yeah.
It's on our Facebook page.
Sensitive, just like the owner.
Right. I'm a little oversensitive.
In the bank.
And so there's so many, in financial aid, it's very easy to make, what I would say, make mistakes of commission where you just do stuff wrong, or mistakes of omission where you just don't know about what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So even little silly, innocuous, like administrative feeling or sounding mistakes, like getting a kid's social security number wrong on a tax return, she probably finds 1 or 2 of those mistakes a week for accountants who have historically put the wrong information down on the tax returns for years, for the entirety of the kid's life.
Wow.
And it's never anything that a parent would check on a tax return.
Sure.
And it's usually not even the accountant per se's fault. It's usually one of the people who work for that accountant.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the problem is that if you submit a tax return, which has to be uploaded, to the Department of Education, one way, and you're applying to college the correct way with the correct information, and the two don't, jibe,
Sure.
that'll kick it back, and that could result in delays.
Gotcha.
Same thing with dates of birth,
Yep.
all sorts of stuff like that. So even like the dumb mistakes, those are problematic. But then there are mistakes that are, like I said, more of omission, not understanding. If you have money in one bucket per se, if you move that from here to there,
Yep.
does that improve your eligibility by $12,000 a year? That type of stuff.
Sure.
So it's very easy to kind of mess this stuff up.
Gotcha. That's interesting. So we only have a couple minutes left here. So we were talking a little bit earlier in the show about predictions 2020. What's happening in 2020? How are things going to change? What's one thing that maybe parents should know going in if they have a kid in this process, and maybe shed some light on 2020, the year of the. I don't know. You could fill that in.
Yeah, the cat.
The
Hairless cat.
Do we have Cliff? You didn't load in the hairless cat into the
Yeah.
deck. All right.
Hairless cat. No, we didn't give it to you.
Corey had asked me to give some images to flash up on the screen, and so I gave him a whole bunch of like normal ones. Then I threw in a hairless cat.
I was too busy helping his technophobe father.
Okay,
Get on Facebook.
that's like a full-time job.
I am technophobe.
Yeah.
I like that word, though.
So I would have brought my crystal ball because we do a predictions webinar.
We'll get you back.
Every year. Okay.
We'll get you back.
Yeah. Well, I knew you'd say that.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear that Stephen Wright
Aren't we
joke?
doing a webinar?
Yeah. Right. We should promote that.
Yeah, we'll bring it on the webinar.
Yeah. Did you ever hear the Stephen Wright joke about those 900, the hotlines? Like, if they were so psychic, how come they don't call you?
Exactly. They want to talk
That's
to
what I
you.
always think. So all right. So one of the predictions that we talked about a couple weeks ago, which I feel might actually happen, as opposed to some of the other ones I've made, is that I think there's going to be much more scrutiny this year of all the college applications because of the scandals where in the past, like a lot of kids, even the ones who weren't going to jail or the parents weren't going to jail, they would all claim that they founded, like 17 kids would have founded the robotics club from the local high school or something. And I mean, if you were an admissions officer and you were reviewing applications, from let's see, University of Michigan, which is a really hot school that everyone applies to.
Sure.
You could see literally founder. I think what is hopefully going to change is that guidance counselors who didn't have to review applications before, but hopefully there'll be some sort of maybe certification process where they have to kind of sign off, on the applications, or there'll be some. I've heard about some colleges talking about doing some sort of quality control type of reviews of applications. So hopefully that's going to be a little bit more of a deterrent of some of the, the more egregious poetic licenses being used, so that the kids who are being truthful and doing the applications correctly, hopefully they'll have a little bit better shot this year, as opposed to competing against people who are just willing to say anything to get in.
Gotcha. Well, that's a good thing for the kids that at least
I hope so.
are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, we appreciate you coming on to the show here today. You have some fun. We didn't hit you too hard, did we?
No, this was. Are you setting me up?
No, I have nothing else.
Okay.
I have nothing up my sleeve.
Okay, good. No, this is great. Obviously, this was a lot of fun.
Yep. Yeah. So we quick commercial break, and then the last thing we're gonna do, we're gonna talk about when we can kind of hear from you next, because we do have a webinar coming up this month, which is pretty cool. So, quick word from our sponsors. All right, so we're back here. February 25th is the date. I think I have that correct. What time are we doing? We're scheduled for 6 p.m., I think? 7 p.m.?
Well, I think the website works now. So if they go to flgwebinar.com,
yes,
that will have all the information. You're going to be, again, sort of grilling me on really college funding and scholarships.
Yep.
For athletes and taking questions.
Perfect. So we'll dive a little deeper in on the 25th. I'll send the link out to anyone that's watching the show here today, or anyone that watches the show later. You can always email us at info@flglacrosse.com. I'll send you the link right to the webinar, and then you can click it, you can watch it, and then you can learn more from Andy, he's a goat. He's one of the greatest at what he does. Would you agree?
Yeah, he's definitely an all Long Island goat. We don't have a goat team
We do our own
for this,
accolade
but we're
system
going to start
for
one.
Long Island Lacrosse.
Nice.
We actually might even name a specialty award, the Andy Lockwood Award of
I like that.
Courage or Intelligence.
Wow.
Or, I don't know. I'm just throwing words.
Sarcasm?
Yeah, sarcasm.
We should have Andy at the goat party and let him decide who gets that award.
Yeah, we're going to bring you down to present that award.
A
I
couple
want
weeks
Pearl to come, though, because I haven't met Pearl yet.
Yeah, better half.
she'll steal the show. A couple weeks ago, I got solicited in the mail. Someone said it was like a form letter. Congratulations, you've been named the best college planning office in Glenwood Landing, New York. So I actually, after I had that reaction, I was laughing. So I actually emailed the guy. I was like, I'm just curious. Like, I'm very flattered, but what are the criteria? Because to my knowledge, there are no other college planning offices in Glenwood Landing, New York, and he didn't respond. So I already have one of these titles under my belt. So it'd be nice just to add another, just to unify the two.
Yeah, we're gonna bring it all together. All right, so we'll see everyone on the 25th, and until next time.